The blue star is the year 2088 of the new era. Our hero is walking down the street, looking at his phone. Then he sees a girl in a rabbit costume who stands in front of the phone. She says that you should not be lazy to work with pens and send her flowers, showing your activity. This is a live broadcast. Well, no one is being judged here. The girl really overdid the outfit according to the young man. The girl who was broadcasting was in a rabbit costume and it looked very embarrassing. In front of us, the main character who was just heading down the street is Lin Qiu, 17 years old, a student type of awakening, turning into a beast, and the beast of awakening, a small white rabbit. The young man had rabbit ears on his head, real ones. The girl, conducting the broadcast, asked everyone not to be shy and show their activity. Our hero, standing in the background, was very shy. And then she thought about the werewolf rabbit, who was very weak and decided that she needed to play with him. Therefore, she asked her viewers if they thought she could handle him in a minute. Then they had to send her their rockets. Immediately the viewers began to send their rockets to the chat. Everyone was interested to see this fight of animals because everyone thought that the guy was very lucky that he could fight with this girl. The broadcast was carried out in popular social networks, and everyone wrote a lot of comments while the girl asked them if they would help her with their activity. Everyone was very interested in the guy who was behind. Our main character also had rabbit ears, and whether it was real or it was overhead, all viewers were very interested in this information. The girl, looking at the young man, said that this guy had the same ears as everyone else and started touching his ears. The young man was very embarrassed. Then the girl used her energy and fought with the guy, defeated our rabbit. She knocked down a little bunny, after which she earned 13 rockets, which she was thrown off in the chat after seeing their battle. The young man, defeated by the girl, lying on the asphalt, thought that he had met such a nasty person like her on the way, and then he was hit by a car. A man got out of the car, saying that it was a terrible abomination and asked Lin Qiu to get out of the way. The girl in the broadcast asked her viewers to watch Brother Rabbit fly into the sky and then land directly on the car. The young man could not understand why he was so lucky. He grew up in a shelter. At the age of 15 he awakened the ability to turn into a beast, but his form is a rabbit. In a school full of supernatural beings, he was constantly bullied because the law applies on the blue star, the strongest survives. In a forest with a huge number of ferocious animals, the rabbit can only wait to be torn apart. At that moment, the young man landed on the car and a man approached him, who saw that the young man landed not only on the ground, but also earlier on his car, so he maliciously asked the young man to get up. Otherwise he would pay. Our hero, lying on the ground, was unable to get up because he had just flown a decent distance. The person approaching him asked if he really decided to pretend to be dead, and using his power in the form of a discharge, he decided to teach the young man a lesson so that he knew how to touch his car, and at that moment he attacked our hero, who was thinking about whether he would die in this way. He was very unhappy, and if only he could become stronger, the young man thought to himself. Then the system felt the presence of a hero, someone who, after 35 million years, was finally found. It was a suitable host, which was not easy to find. At that moment, the young man's body was pierced by 1,000,000 discharges, and he felt an unusual strength in himself. Something changed in his body and condition, something unusual for him. After waking up, our hero did not understand where he was around him. There were screens on which it was written about X-ray vision, binding, hacking skills, awakening space, and other attributes that the young man could use. Here the robot 9527, addressing our hero, said that he was ready for his services, calling the young man the owner. The hero heard that it was a trunk, and turning to the computer, he again asked him what kind of trunk. Then the computer, not understanding what the young man was talking about, called him a trunk, and his family, too, according to the computer, was a trunk, asking to call him simply 9527. Shining on the young man, who did not understand what was going on here, he decided to ask 9527 how he got here and what happened to him. The computer also explained to him that in the first 1,000 years he had found a suitable host, so he used the power accumulated over 35 million years to save him. The young man, beaming with joy, realized that he had not died and began to press the buttons that were in front of him, learning what kind of skill, seeing that he was even higher than the guys at 13 levels and could choose any of these abilities to be presented in front of him. Then the computer said that the young man would be fine. He could awaken a skill from the hero every day, but this skill fell out randomly, and one random skill fell to our hero now, who did not understand what it meant. The computer explained that it was all about the host due to the fact that he simply resurrected it. He lacked energy, so it was necessary to act differently. The hero, pressing on the screen, said that he would not linger here and asked the computer if he would really return to the present time if he resurrected before or if it would be another time. The computer reported that this would be the place of his death. Then I remember my death, and the young man decided to ask if some unnecessary skill could fall to him and then he would die again. Then the computer replied that there was nothing he could do to help and asked if the young man wanted to awaken his skill right now. He needed to decide on this action. Remembering his miserable life and death, the hero did not care. He had a chance to come back to life, so he was obliged to take a chance and press the confirm button on the computer screen. The skill lottery was activated and the young man was congratulated on acquiring a skill with the rank of ability enhancement. Our hero returned to his time again. When he was attacked by a young man with a discharge and coughing, he made it clear that he was still alive, which greatly surprised the man who attacked him. Thanks to the new skill of strengthening the attack and jumping abilities, our hero was able to jump away from the scene of the incident. A girl who had previously been on the air was watching all this. With incredible speed, the young man jumped away from the place where he was attacked and landed on the car in such a way that he could even break it, which greatly annoyed the man who had previously attacked him with it. After all, in his opinion, the young man treated his car terribly, and he decided to kill him. The hero, having attacked the enemy, said that he did not plan to die and a fight got mixed up between them. Then the girl who was watching all this decided not to move, because otherwise she could have suffered. The rabbit fist skill was activated, the strength of the hands and the attack speed were increased, and our hero, holding the girl who fainted, covered her with his clothes. Because her clothes were torn from the force of their collision, she did not understand what was happening. Her head was spinning and then the young man decided to cover her with his clothes, otherwise she confused the townspeople. Then taking her phone, the young man looked at what was in it. Holding the phone in his hand, he heard that someone asked him to remove his dirty hands from the girl. But the young man, entering her broadcast, said that he would not repeat twice, so he stopped listening to everyone carefully. He's a daddy rabbit here. Someone said that he did not like the young man and asked to let the girl go. Someone said that he wanted to become his hands because he held the beauty in his hands. And someone just liked him. The whole broadcast discussed our hero. The next day, the girls were discussing the news and one asked if her friends had read yesterday's news, and then someone decided to clarify whether the girl was talking about the accident or about the guy with rabbit ears who suddenly appeared in the middle of the online broadcast, and it seemed that he was studying with them in the class of their classmate with red ears. Then the girl asked if they were really talking to Lin Qiu, because looking at the photo it should have been him. At that moment the guy entered the audience. All the girls surrounded him and asked if he was a bunny, and really, he looked very irresistible today, and was very cute. One of them said. The other said that she watched the broadcast too, and they all surrounded the young man, wanting to get his attention. The hero was very surprised that they considered the bunny irresistible. The next moment, the guys who had previously treated the young man badly admitted their wrongness, promising that they would no longer do this and behaving correctly with him. Then the guy realized that they were talking about yesterday's situation. And then he realized that now the guys were looking at him as a role model and saying that the huge strength in such a small body was a real man of this century, and everything was thanks to the skills that the system gave him. Then returning to the system, the young man remembered that he had not yet received today's skill, and decided to fix it by contacting 9527. The system replied that she was already here, and automatically started the lottery. The skill lottery was activated and the young man was congratulated on acquiring the skill of seeding the world. This skill was rank E, the system showed. At this moment, the young man imagined how all the girls were delighted with him. He was wondering what kind of seeding skill it was. Then clicking on the screen, the young man thought that he could get a lot of fun imagining how all the other guys would be unhappy, and pressing the screen again. He did not understand why it did not work. Then the computer informed him that the skill was successfully activated, and pressing it again was completely useless. The young man didn't understand what was wrong, because he got the skill, but he didn't feel anything. The skill means that the young man has gained knowledge about all the seeds that exist in the world. The plants that will be planted by him will definitely take root and germinate, the computer told him. The young man was thinking about something completely different and therefore was upset when he heard it from the computer. The hero didn't understand what kind of nonsense it was. Wouldn't it be better to call it a seed sowing skill? The computer should have given him a name that shouldn't give false hopes. He informed the young man. At that moment all the girls started to shy away from him, and the guys stared and started calling the white rabbit. One of them saw that the young man is popular among girls, and if he was not mistaken, then after studying, our hero worked as a deliveryman and asked if he wanted him to give him a job, because if the young man was lucky, he would row the dough in huge tons. It was Lin who awakened the wind, bronze, 4 stars. Lin Qiu suggested that Lin discuss his proposal later, but the young man thought to himself that this guy usually annoyed him, so why did he become kinder today? Then Lin said that one X-club was recruiting workers and the young man was sure that the hero would be welcomed with open arms. The young man did not understand to himself whether the guy was really serious. And then he said that it seemed that Lin had no problems with money. He said that of course it was, but then he suddenly realized that the young man had played a joke on him and admitted that in fact, he had not been to the place he had mentioned earlier. Our hero realized that his joke was a success and said that there was nothing wrong with it. The young man, getting angry, told Lin Qiu that he really wasn't serious and asked the hero not to talk nonsense. Then the teacher came up and asked if the guys would like to be punished for a skirmish on the territory of the educational institution, asking both and asked everyone to sit down because he had 2 important announcements for the students. The guys obediently sat down and decided to listen to what the teacher would tell them. The teacher said that there would be a test next week and he hoped that everyone would try and get good scores. In addition, students who have awakened their abilities will additionally take a special exam. Senior management will also be present. The best will have the opportunity to enter Linghui University. It was a university of the highest valor. Our hero, having heard about this university, was very excited and thought that maybe he had a chance to enroll in this prestigious university, considering what power he now possesses, and also that he had an assistant system. After the reappearance of Aura, Blue Star created Linghui University. This university specializes in educating qualified winners. Due to the limited educational resources, the main way to evaluate the abilities and students is a special exam. Our hero, sitting down, thought that he not only got a bad skill of turning into a rabbit, but also a mediocre qualification of 2 bronze stars. But now he had a chance. Remembers 9527. This was his chance. Raising his hand and asking the teacher to pay attention to himself, the teacher saw that Lin Qiu also wanted to take this exam, but told the young man not to even try to take it. The young man's qualifications were too low, and he had only 2 bronze stars. He would only disgrace their school if he took this exam. The hero was upset that the teachers immediately told him that the young man was not suitable, and was very surprised by this. Our hero was stubborn and told the teacher that he still wanted to participate in this exam. Then the teacher said that the young man had mediocre abilities. He would be laughed at there in this way. In order to protect the honor of the school, it was necessary to choose someone else. The young man looked at the teacher and thought that he looked at people like him from high, so he decided to see how the teacher speaks when the young man awakens 13 skills. Then the teacher said that if the young man could enter the top 10 on the upcoming test, then he would give him a chance. The hero was inspired by the fact that he decided to give him a chance to get into the top 10 and agreed to his terms. Then let the results resolve their dispute, said teacher Lin Qiu. The young man realized that he had to fight no matter what. He had to go to this university. School gate number 18. The young man diligently ran, thinking that in addition to testing, he needed to think about money for training. His salary is not enough. He had little savings at that moment. The young man was doused by a car that was passing nearby in a puddle, and a girl got out of it. Looking at the young man, she asked if he was the same rabbit. Seeing the girl, the hero thought that she was like an angel and her appearance was charming. It was the goddess Qin Zhen Zhen. All the young man could say, staring at the girl, was that she was a beauty. But then he thought to himself that only that the girl called him a rabbit, and did not understand why the girls liked to call him that way. After all, he was a very serious guy and he could not be called that. It was very embarrassing for the young man, because the girl was still that beauty in the soul. The guy was just killed. But making a serious look, he cleared his throat and asked to be allowed to introduce himself. And he introduced himself as Lin Qiu. But the girl could call him something else, for example, handsome, and show her his contact. He offered the girl not to be shy and take his number, trying to look charming, so that the girl, looking at him, definitely did not refuse. A friend who was standing next to her and realized that after looking at the rabbit's brother, she thought he was still that prankster and remembered that the young man was the presenter on the broadcast, and she came to return his jacket specifically. Taking the jacket from the girl, the young man realized that she also studied here. Then on the street he thought something completely different, and coming close to the young man, the girl put her finger to her lips so that he would not say anything more, because it was just a small hobby, and asked him to keep everything a secret. The young man did not understand why she needed to hide, because thanks to her hobby she became so popular. Immediately, Qin Zhen said that it was the guy Ming Ming was talking about, distracting the young man and the girl from their conversation. It was Qin Zhen Ice Awakening, 1 silver star, the #1 high school fairy, ranked highest in the student rankings. Min Min answering Zhen said that this young man easily dealt with a guy who had 2 bronze stars. Then Zhen realized that his opponent had only 2 stars, but Min Min was sure that the young man could cope with anyone, because surely his level was above 2 stars. At this moment, our hero, rubbing his fists, addressing the girls, asked if they wanted, then he could demonstrate something to them. Well, the girl said that she returned his clothes, so they left. Then our hero realized that he had not been able to take her contacts so far. He also asked if the girls really left so quickly, because they could have gone somewhere together and chat. Zhen asked if the young man was sure of this. The hero, of course, stammered that he wanted this and whether there was a problem in something. To herself, Zhen thought about whether 2 stars would have the courage to challenge her, and saying to herself, Qin Zhen never refused challenges and invited the young man to do it. Even though there was a big difference in strength between them, she invited him to fight. The winner will be determined next week. The young man agreed to say that he would just listen to the goddess, but then realized that this was not the best way to address the girl. Jumping away from the young man, Zhen asked who allowed him to call her that, holding out his hand. The young man did not understand what the problem was. Then maybe the girl could be called Sister Qin, asking what the reward would be in their competitions. It was very interesting to Lin Qiu. Leaving Zhen, he said that if she lost, she would take back her words, and the young man would be able to make any wish, because the girl was sure to herself that in any case, the young man could not win. The hero, hearing that he had any desire, was very inspired, because he could make whatever he wanted. While the young man was dreaming about Zhen, who was already walking away, Ming Ming, turning to her brother, asked him to take his jacket and advised him to abandon this idea, because Zhen was very strong. At that moment the girl called Ming Ming, asking if she was coming. She hesitated because she did not have time to tell the young man everything she wanted, but she had to go already. Our hero, thanking the girls for everything and Min Min for advice, said that he would not back down, and saying goodbye, they left. Our hero was sitting on his scooter looking at his phone, because someone wrote to him, Malagan, order details. The message sounded like this. The young man wrote that he was about to be beaten and he asked for help, saying that he needed to be rescued faster, because he was at the entrance to the Phoenix Cafe. Any amount would have been called by the young man would have come up and asked to bring more people, sending and saw signal. The young man had the option to accept this order by clicking yes or no, but seeing that the amount was any, our hero agreed. Climbing on his scooter and rushing, he flew to his money chest. Internet Cafe Phoenix, and nearby in the alley, someone asked if a person was tired of living, and he asked not to be touched, because he had already given a lot of money to robbers, and asked how much more they needed. The young man cried, huddled in a corner and holding on to the bag. It was Jiang San, the awakened healer, 9 bronze stars. Then the hooligans picked up the young man and he asked them to let him go, but they needed money. But they still wouldn't let him go, even if he gave them all the money. And they asked if the guy really thought that everything could be solved with money, saying that they would not allow him to escape and would deal with him. Holding the guy by the breasts, they tried to scare him, but then suddenly they were asked what they were doing. It was our hero. Lin Qiu, a rabbit, stood with a bat behind the hooligans and asked why the guys suddenly decided that they could mock others without incurring any punishment for it. Then the boys asked the rabbit if he was really looking for death once he came to them and tried to stop what they were doing. But our hero was not afraid of this and asked if the guys had any ideas about this, saying that the little rabbit would not be lucky if they tried to fight him. Then the young man snapped his fingers and a lot of guys appeared behind Lin Qiu, who asked him who needed to be beaten here, because there were only 2 hooligans in front of the rabbit. Any guy who decides to stand out on the territory of this gang will pay for it, the guys said. Then, running away, the hooligans asked who this rabbit guy was and where he called so many people from. The young man shouted after the guys to run faster. Jiang San looked at the rabbit and was insanely glad that he was saved, asking if it was really possible to find thugs in the delivery. And emboldened, the guy shouted after them that if he saw them again, then his brother would provide them with a very good life. Our rabbit replied that he was not the young man's brother, very surprised that he said it. The guy turned to the rabbit with tears in his eyes, saying that the young man had saved him and now they were bound forever, because from that moment he became his older brother. Then Lin Qiu asked the young man to stop, saying that he didn't need any brother and he just preferred cash. The guy said that money is not a problem and he will do whatever the young man wants. The guy introduced himself as Jiang San, who was a #1 high school student, and since then he told the young man that he would do whatever he asked him to do, giving him his bank account where 30,000 was written. This amount surprised our hero very much. He did not expect such a big reward. And thinking about what worked, even giving away 170 people who came with him, he would have a whole bunch of money left. The guy thought and realized that with this money he could pay for his studies. Then the rabbit decided to ask what exactly these hooligans wanted from the young man. Lin Qiu thought to himself that this rich kid was sent to him by heaven no other way. The young man explained that he did not do anything like that, but only played for a female character in order to combine marriage unions in one game. And his guys asked him to say something in a voice. He tried to say by changing his voice, but then it turned out that these guys asked him to say something in a female voice, was sitting right in front of him. So it turned out to be a very uncomfortable situation, and the young man got caught because of it. After hearing this story, the rabbit thought that the young man really got into a very awkward situation. This surprised the rabbit's brother very much. Climbing on a scooter, he said that it was time for him to get back to work. Zhang also offered him a lift to the young man on his Rolls Royce. The hero refused to think to himself that this young man was not of this world. To himself, the young man remembered today and thought that luck was in full swing today, and everything was thanks to a meeting with a beautiful woman he met in the afternoon, and decided that he would return home early. Because he did not want to screw up right in front of his goddess and sat on a scooter, the young man drove towards home. It was the beginning of the lesson. The day before, Lin Qiu had been training hard, thinking about how he wanted to sleep, because he had been training all night. His body was as if emptied. But on this day the teacher had to tell about the key points of the exam. So the young man was preparing with all his diligence, drinking liters of coffee. He thought about that he needed to cheer up and asked 9527 that he wanted a new skill. The system also said that she was asleep and did not understand why the young man could not sleep all this time. He pulled her both day and night. Then the young man did not understand how the computer could sleep so much. The system congratulated him on getting the photographic memory skill. This skill allowed the host to remember everything he saw, as well as to get from the depths of memory everything he had studied earlier, which makes this skill indispensable for the final exam. After hearing about this skill, the young man really wanted to try it as soon as possible. After using this skill, the hero sat on the subject thinking about how fun it was, because he knew everything that surprised the teacher very much when he saw Lin Qiu laughing. The young man, looking at the book, thought that it was all very easy. It felt as if all the letters, signs and numbers he had once entered were imprinted on his memory. Now it was all easier for him. Looking at the book, the young man thought that having this skill made him more like a god or makes him more invincible. The teacher thinks that Lin Qiu was an impudent person and hitting the desk, calling the guy. The young man jumped up, saying that he was here. The young man did not understand what the teacher wanted from him and why he was angry. He showed him a textbook and asked why the hero was reading a physics textbook for Chinese lessons, and at the same time he was laughing. The young man replied that he just remembered a joyful moment. Then hearing about it, the teacher did not understand what joy could be discussed with his grades. Did the guy forget that he would not be admitted to a special exam if he did not get into the top 10? The young man with a stony face informed the teacher that he had forgotten the truth, because he got bored in class, which made the teachers very angry and he could not believe his ears. How the young man could get bored, because this year they wrote a bunch of tests, and each time his scores barely crossed the threshold. Then the young man asked him not to remember the past, because mechanical memorization was really not his strong point. Holding a book in his hands, the young man told the teacher that he could argue with him that he knew this book by heart, which greatly surprised the teacher. Looking at the young man, the teacher asked if Lin Qiu still did not understand what the teacher's opinion was about him. He should have refused the competition so as not to disgrace the school, stop talking nonsense, and come to his senses. After that, the teacher decided to start asking the young man, starting with a simple what the phoenix was supposed to do. The hero was not surprised yet that the question was too simple and answered that the phoenix had to embrace the moon and honor the eternals forever. After his answer, the young man shocked not only the teacher, but everyone around them. All crowded around them, waiting for the next round. The teacher thought that the young man was just lucky and therefore decided to ask the following question. Kin is, and then the hero replied that he had no time to mourn his ancestors from all the ancient texts that they studied. Only this sentence began with the hieroglyph kin. The teacher could not understand how this was possible, how the young man exactly reproduced the second part of the sentence. Checking this moment in the textbook, all the guys were also surprised and looked at the young man. Lin Qiu replied that it was quite logical. But then the teacher said that it was completely illogical. Did the young man still think that he could take part in the exam with his knowledge? Then the hero replied that they had studied this text last semester and the teacher asked them to learn this passage by heart. All the students were shocked because no one remembered what happened last semester with the teacher. Leaving, the young man, addressing his comrades, said that they would see each other at the exam. And at that moment the teacher fainted. And so the student picked up, asking about what happened to the teacher. A group of students and parents crowded around the table with scores and grades. One of the young men heard that one of the top 3 studied at their school. The woman who was on the phone said that it was impossible. Did someone kidnap Zhen Zhen? And someone forced her to become their student. Who was interested? Who was in first place? Was it really Lin Qiu? The man behind the girl said that this could not be, because he was the weakest awakened in this school. Then looking at the scoreboard, someone saw that it was Lin Qiu who took first place. The young man, rubbing his earpiece, said that the world was not a constant thing. Sometimes a small fish gave a big head start. To himself, the hero thought that with the help of photographic memory, he passed the exam with ease. Walking away from the score table, the hero felt very good, because it was time to show the opponent what kind of test he was made of. The young man in the background was furious, because there was some mistake and it was impossible. Then Lin Qiu was asked to calm down, because he reacted too violently to the situation. 10 days later, the competition arena. The host announced that the contest of abilities was about to begin and whether all the guys were ready. People were cheering and applauding in these stands. All the stands were occupied. Then the presenter asked to greet the delegate of the 30th district, the one that includes hundreds of the best students in the country, the student that took 18th place in the overall ranking, the one that went to the top 3 at the previous stage. At that moment, a blue-haired girl with a very serious look came out and smashed something next to her. The men passing by did not understand what had happened to her, because something must have happened. Then another young man informed the man that this girl had never occupied a place below 1 before, and today she dropped to 2. Seeing the girl, our hero greeted the goddess, calling her by name, Zhen Zhen, and asked her to come here. But the girl did not want to be near the young man, and he did not understand what was happening, and then, dissatisfied, she said that Lin Qiu had won and asked what he wanted. The young man, rubbing his head, talked about how it seemed to him that he had hurt Miss Qin's pride and saying that the bet was a joke, and that she would not take everything to heart or invite him to dinner. Then the blushing girl began to stammer and said that she would like to say that she was very sorry and I apologized to the hero for calling him a weakling. Seeing Zhen Zhen apologizing, the young man was overjoyed, because she looked very cute and was more beautiful than ever. Then the presenter came up to them, asking what he saw here. It was the first and second place. But what did the guys do together? Then the blushing Zhen reported that everything was wrong and they were not together, but that 1,000 viewers were watching right on the screens. The presenter reported that he heard that their awakened form was a white rabbit. Was it so? I turned to Lin Qiu, he said, because it was quite brave of him to take part in such a test. But our hero was very proud of himself and said that he had come for the first place. In the stands, the guys laughed at the young man, saying that the little rabbit swung at the victory, and that it was insanely funny considering the young man stupid. Someone also said that he did not think that if the young man coped with the exams, then he would also be lucky in the ring, and asked him to stay away from their goddess. At that moment, the presenter realized that there was one place in front of him, and the young man grabbed the microphone, saying that he had nothing to say to them all, except that he was number 1 and therefore asked to pray for his favorites, because he hoped that today they would fall for him, showing all the stands his middle finger and smiling. Everyone was shocked by this statement, along with the presenter, who was standing next to the young man. The hero looked at everyone smiling, saying that he was number 1. Then the presenter, taking away his microphone, asked him not to chat anymore, saying that it was necessary to start the performance. People from the stands shouted that the guy was a pathetic animal, and if he had the courage, then let him go down to the podium and fight with them, saying that they did not advise him to get caught in the ring for the young man. These were all empty words, and he just plugged his ears, enjoying this atmosphere. The host asked for silence and announced the rules of today's competition. These were simple rules. The battle was 1-on-1. The winner moves forward. The loser is eliminated. A total of 257 students will take part in the competition. They will send the numbers to the participants' mobile phones, the presenter said. After that, everyone started receiving mobile phone numbers and everyone started checking the information that was sent to them. The numbers appeared on the scoreboard, and the presenters announced since the number of participants was odd, one of them was randomly selected to skip the round. The participants in each round will be removed randomly. Everyone began to pray that the Lord God would help them to keep their strength and hold out until the very end, while our hero just yawned on the sidelines. Here the player with the number 66, and it turned out to be our hero, said that the young man could miss the round. No one believed that a rabbit could be so led. Everyone began to wonder why it wasn't them. But the game was about to start, so the participants were asked to prepare for the ring. The hero thought that they were lucky, but a game is a game, so he decided to watch who would fight with whom, and Jen already participated in the first battle. And having won, the girl froze her opponent, to which the young man was injured and dropped out of the game. The winner was announced, and it was a high school student, Jen. Among the participants, many, as expected, that she would win because the girl was a real star. Lin Qiu was delighted, looking at her, because she really was a silver-level ice awakener, a real goddess. It was just incredible. And then the hero began to read the book. He was thinking that he couldn't lose, so he needed to quickly learn more techniques from the book to become a player worthy of his Jen. 10 minutes later, there was a fierce battle between two opponents, and our hero, watching this, thought that all these uninteresting techniques drove him just into a dream, so he turned to 9527 asking him to get out to chat with him. Sleepy, looking at the screens in front of him, our hero tried to choose which skill to use today. Then, turning to 9527, the young man said that he noticed that recently the system had become lazy and stopped chatting with him. Then the system said that it was not lazy, and the choice was completed. And the system congratulated the host on receiving the SS rank of strengthening the whole body. Seeing the S rank mark, the young man thought that he finally got what he wanted so much, because the system had been giving him all the garbage in the opinion of the young man for the last few days. He thought that the problem was in the system itself, but he was wrong. Happy despite the screen, he saw that the system advised the host to follow his words and thoughts. Otherwise he would not wait for any bad and useful skills next time, and asked whether to activate the skill right now. The young man, of course, pressed the yes button, because he could no longer wait, and here on the hero all the clothes were torn and the reinforcement was successfully completed. The clothes on the young man's body tore and he formed strong dense muscles. He couldn't even believe himself that the amplification was so powerful, and now he looked like a real man. Only his pants and all his clothes were torn, so that everyone was a little confused by his appearance. The young man thought that everyone was confused by the fact that he was so handsome, but it turned out that it wasn't like that at all. The girl pointed at his pants and asked what it was. The guy was wearing underpants with chickens. Then Lin Qiu realized how shameful this moment was and started shouting at the whole arena. Then they announced the second round, which came to an end, and 101 participants remained, and they were all ready to move on. So who was the next lucky guy to fight? The host asked, and the scoreboard showed the number 66, and it was Lin Qiu. The young man was sitting on a bench having picked up his new pants, and next to him sat a girl who was embarrassed by his appearance. It was day 2 and luck smiled on number 66 again. On day 3 the presenter was already tired of saying it, but number 66 was in the top 35. People were already beginning to doubt that the young man was really so lucky. Then the presenter wanted to ask participant Lin Qiu to say a few words to them. Taking off his diary, which fell on his face, the guy said that he himself did not want everything to happen like that, and he was very bored and he really wanted to stretch. While the young man was saying this, all the other players who were beaten and all in abrasions were looking at him, saying that the guy was lucky, and it was hard to believe that the young man also missed this last round. Everyone wanted the young man to meet them in the ring, because then they could actually deal with him. They fought so desperately in the ring for their victory, and our hero was just lucky all the time. Then Lin Qiu said that they had already gone through several rounds, and this guy was still sitting on the bench. Was it really fair? Turning through the microphone, taking it away from the presenter, to our hero. Lin Qiu disagreed with this, and he demanded fair treatment of all those involved. The hosts announced that it was incredible because the participant Lin An withdrew from the competition. Lin Qiu at number 66 will take part in the next stage. The other players thought that the guy's luck had finally run out. The young man thought that he would finally be able to play because it was time to check his level after the last improvement in characteristics. And the board chose an opponent for our hero. Everyone wanted to see who would become his first opponent. and it was Lei Dian at number 88. Everyone asked to teach this pompous turkey a lesson. Someone shouted that it was Lei Dian, and it was incredible that such an opponent was caught in the first fight. Lei Dian was a Thunder Awakener, 8 bronze stars. Seeing his opponent, the young man did not believe it, because he saw his opponent was very serious. The hero, rubbing his head, asked so much not to be aggressive on his side. And the first game was about to begin. Then Lei Dan asked Lin Qiu if his name was right, saying that his lucky streak ended on him. Now the young man was extremely unlucky to become his opponent. Lei Dan said that he did not like to brag before the game, but told the young man that he would smear him on the ground. Our hero didn't care about it at all. Then Lei Dan said that he had changed his mind. He would torture the young man slowly, and after the fight he would not be able to recover for a long time. Well, our hero answered this very calmly while the young man electrified lightning on his hands. Having attacked our hero with these lightning bolts, Lei Dan said that they had nothing more to add and wished the young man death. Lin Qiu calmly dodged his lightning, and the lightning missed by hitting the arena. Lin Qiu noticed that the cooldown time was too long and for sure all of Lei Dan's opponents were intact. Lin Qiu asked if this was the case, because he thought that his opponent would not be able to defeat them with this technique. Then Lei Dan wondered how such a thing was possible and how the young man was able to return from his attack. And he used the thunder technique to attack our hero again. But the young man used his technique that the thunder could not hit him, and, angry, Lei Dan told the young man that he would not be able to evade the answer so easily, and again using lightning, he decided to attack our hero. The young man reasoned that the damage was too high, much more than the previous attack in the past. He had received such lightning bolts a couple of times. But if he was hurt by this, the consequences would be catastrophic. And in this case, the young man, starting to attack, thought that it was necessary to quickly get rid of his opponent faster so that he did not have time to strike him, and found himself near Lei Dan, who did not expect that the young man would move so fast and that he had such a simple awakening. But the strength did not match the hero. Lei Dan thought about how he had to withstand such an attack. After attacking Lei Dan, he thought that he would not tolerate it, but it was too late. The young man was flying headfirst into the asphalt. The host announced that it was incredible. The number 66 among the opponents won with just one blow, and announcing the winner, the host raised his hand to Lin Qiu, who became the winner of this fight. The young man was surprised. Did his strength really increase so much after strengthening the characteristics? The crowd cheered because they could not believe that the young man was so strong, because he defeated the opponent with just one blow, and everyone was rooting for Lin Qiu. 2 men were discussing the situation. One was called Jian Wen, who was the vice president of the martial arts university, and asked Lu Zhen, who was also the vice president of the martial arts university, how pleased he was because he allowed Lin Qiu to participate in the competition. Lu Zhen said that it was nothing. Was the vice president really so confident in this young man? Our hero stood after his victory, next to the opponent who awakened the physical strength of the beast and had 8 bronze coins. Then the vice president said that he was closely following the young man's round, and he did not use spiritual force, to which the other vice president told him that it was impossible. The force invested in this blow was too great. The young man really did not use spiritual power. His physical strength must have been incredible, and both vice presidents were thinking about what a curious newcomer was in front of them. Day 2. Number 66 Lin Qiu had to fight against number 12 Shen Gui, and the match was starting. The host announced. The young men were standing next to each other and needed to fight about now. Shen Gui, who had awakened the physical strength of the beast and had 8 bronze stars, as well as the animal form of a wolf, stood and looked at our hero. His strength and power were felt even from a distance. Lin Qiu, looking at the young man, thought about what a terrible aura it was, and maybe it was worth improving the characteristics a little more to defeat him. Here our hero used his power of fire. The enemy had the power of lightning. But as soon as Lin Qiu showed his powerful fire energy, Shen Gui said that he was giving up and knelt in front of the young man, saying that Lin Qiu had won the next match. And as soon as it started, the opponent surrendered to Lin Qiu again. The hero was very surprised, because he hadn't done anything yet. But then Lin Qiu was again declared the winner. The next match was the same because the young man who was the opponent said that he was also giving up, asking for Lin Qiu's autograph. The hero was already standing with a sign saying that why it was so difficult to find an opponent, because every time the hosts announced that he had won. And when many matches had already been passed, the host congratulated the person that the young man had entered the top 8. There were several other guys behind him, and the young man could not believe that he was in the top 8. The host announced this to the entire stadium. The hero was resting next to a sign on which it was written earlier why it was so difficult to find an opponent. which was crossed out and written, invincible. Thinking to himself, the hero was lying on the ground, repeating the phrase from the sign in front of him that he was invincible, and the young man found it very boring. He thought he was going to have fun, but it was all a waste of his time. There was a computer in front of the young man and asked him to stop. Addressing the host, computer asked him to be quieter. The young man wondered why 9527 he appeared in front of him. But it was just in time. Today he had not chosen a skill yet. Artificial introduction of any weapon, be it a spear, a gun, a bow, or something else, increased accuracy. The computer was congratulating the host on getting a new skill, B rank marksmanship. Thinking about the fact that he got accuracy, the young man did not understand who would need a spear or a bow in the world of modern technology. Reasoning, as if to himself, he did not notice how Zhen Zhen approached him, and addressing Lin Qiu. The girl stood next to him and looked confusedly at the young man who was lying on the ground in front of her and did not suspect that she had approached him. Sitting on the ground, the young man asked Zhen Zhen if she had come to see him, but the girl came to tell him something. Looking at the goddess from this angle from which he was sitting, he liked her even more. Sitting on the ground, the young man asked the girl to speak because he would be glad to hear a couple of words from her mouth. At that time, Jen said that she was going to assemble a team to explore the bronze spirit market during the summer holidays, and she wanted to know if Lin Qiu was interested in it. After hearing about the bronze spirit market, the young man decided to ask again what it meant. After the revival of spiritual energy, countless spiritual markets were naturally revived, which is filled with all kinds of spiritual beasts and rare treasures. Not only their skins are valued in these beasts, but not those capable of producing special spiritual spheres that are useful for cultivation. It was for this reason that the girl decided to invite our rabbit, asking what he thought about it. Hearing about rare treasures, and even in the company of Zhen, the guy was insanely happy. Wasn't it like the dream date he was thinking about? And he also imagined how the girl was afraid, relying on him, and he felt too courageous. These were his dreams and fantasies. But then she destroyed them by saying that besides the young man, there would be 6 more people there, so they could not worry about safety. The guy was upset. His plans to be alone with her were crying, he thought. The young man, addressing Zhen Zhen, said that he accepted the invitation. But who were the other guys, she called, and the girl stood up and said that she would contact him later without answering his question. So on. The hero asked if she was already leaving, because they could go to a cafe and chat. But turning around, Jen asked the young man to prepare for the game so that he would not be ashamed when they collided in the ring. The last day of the competition, the host shouted that everyone had finally waited for the final and asked the audience to get ready, because they were starting a battle. Everyone was jubilant and asked the goddess to deal with the rabbit. Someone wanted Lin Qiu to win, and everyone just wanted to watch a good fight, inspired by what they were going to see. Lin Qiu stood in front of Zhen Zhen, and the host announced that they were opponents and could prepare mentally for this fight. The guys just looked at each other, knowing that they were going to have a difficult battle with each other. Our hero was ready for this, and the girl was also determined to win. Standing opposite each other, Jen informed Lin Qiu that this time she would not let the first place slip out of her hands so easily. She thought to herself that even though Lin Qiu was now part of her team, she would not give everything first place. The young man, calming the girl, said that it did not matter who would be in the first place, because she had already become better in the exams, and why she cared so much he could not understand. The hero also reflected that if it wasn't for the gesture he showed during the interview, he would have gladly given up himself. But then the hero, looking at the girl, advised her to admit defeat because he would not be gentle with her. Smiling, the guy said to the girl. The presenter reported that it seemed to him that the players were ready and therefore it was possible to start the game. Everyone immediately took their stands and were ready to attack. The girl informed the young man that her level was not only higher than his, but a few years ago she received a black belt in Taekwondo, so in terms of physical fitness she was in no way inferior to the young man. Concentrating the energy in his fist, the guy asked her to be careful in this case and attacking her. He missed, and she attacked him from behind and attacked from behind. The young man realized that the goddess really was worthy of being called that, because her blow was what it needed. If not for the strengthening of the body, which improved his physical form, then he would definitely not have suffered it. But the fight had just begun, and therefore our hero again moved to attack the girl in front of him. The young man went on the attack and tried to attack JJ, but she reflected his every blow, saying that he was moving too slowly. She attacked him again from behind, hitting the young man right in the shoulder, which hurt him very much. He did not expect this and even broke the floor under him. The girl, standing over him and looking at how the young man was amazed, asked him to give up, even though his physical form was good, but his skills left much to be desired. showing the ice crystals in her hand. She was talking about how she didn't even have time to use her special skill. Standing up and holding onto the shoulder where the girl attacked, the young man thought that Jay was right. If this continues, he will not be able to win, but then he found a way out. The young man asked to stop the fight, which surprised not only Zhen, but also the host. The presenter himself did not understand whether it was possible to do so, whether it was possible to stop this fight. And meanwhile, the young man jumped off the stage and wanted to take a mop that was standing next to the ring, asking the presenter if he could use it. Looking at the young man, the presenter said that he had not met such impudence like him all the time. But Zhen said that everything was fine and let the young man use it to himself, thinking about what was wrong with this guy and what he thought of himself. After all, I shouldn't have blamed her for being cruel. Taking a mop, our hero smiled, and Zhen asked if they could continue their battle. The young man said that everything was fine. They could continue, showing her the mop that he was holding in his hands, asking her to see his new weapon. It was a deadly mop that fits perfectly in his hand. Our hero, standing with a mop, and asked Zhen to look here and not cry when she loses, using his powerful energy. He stood and looked directly at the girl, and she thought that something was wrong. He seemed transformed after picking up this mop, like a general having picked up the perfect weapon. Looking at the young man, she thought to herself from ginseng. The young man really changed. He stood in a confident pose and holding a mop in his hands was ready for any attack. And asking to attack first, let him attack first, he rushed to Zhen with an incredibly fast speed, holding his weapon in his hand. He asked the girl to look directly at him, because he was attacking with his mop. The girl dodged his blows, but then using the body control skill and her own energy, the hero attacked her right in the 5th point, which surprised the girl very much. She thought about why he suddenly became so accurate and what happened, looking back and involuntarily embarrassed. She thought, talking about the scoundrel, that she would kill him for attacking her that way. The hero was happy that he did it at first, but then scratching his head apologized to the girl, because it was just muscle memory, and he didn't want to attack her that way. He just couldn't stop. Justifying himself, he looked at the floor because he couldn't raise his eyes in the direction of the girl. Enraged, Zhen, using the basic skill of icicles, asked him to shut up and decided to attack after his victory, which he won in the 1st round. She wasn't interested in what he was saying there, so she just decided to go on the attack and, having already seen how angry she was, asked to listen to him, because she completely misunderstood everything. Panicking, he looked at the girl. The next moment, when the icicles were already flying in his direction, our hero decided to use his strength and dodge them. But the girl used a new ice skill, namely, freezing, because the young man had already tired of her and began to annoy her. They had been fighting for a very long time, and she wanted to deal with him faster. Feeling how cold it was, the hero stood in his place and held his heart, because his body was weakened after such an attack. But he did not give up, continuing to hold his mop in his hands. To himself, the young man thought that the girl's magic was very fast. If he had not improved his form, he would have already been lying on the ground, struck by her attack. Then the icicles began to approach the young man and surrounding him from all sides, which surprised him very much, because he did not expect such a situation, and at some point they already flew in his direction. Attacking directly from above, our hero prepared to defend himself from this attack. Ginseng, standing aside, just attacked him with her ice, thinking that she had defeated the young man, because a powerful ice explosion formed at the place where he was standing. At that moment, seeing the explosion, she thought that she had won and asked the presenter to call an ambulance and announce the results, explaining this with a calm face, despite the host was asked by Zhen. The presenter, looking at all this, decided to announce that someone was becoming the winner. And before he had time, he saw the silhouette of a young man who was coming out of the smoke screen that remained after the battle. With an angry face coming out of this veil, the young man said that he had left the girl alone for just a minute, so she had to relax, because this was not her final victory yet. The young man had rabbit ears on his head, and he was ready to attack the girl with all his strength, holding the barrel of the mop in his hands, saying that her brother Rabbit was already here, and seeing his speed, the girl began to repel the attack with her ice shield, which was on her hand. She carefully watched what speed the rabbit was developing and exactly how it would attack her. The young man took a mop and ran towards her, and Zhen noticed that Lin Qiu's strength was so great that it was able to break through her ice armor, but nevertheless defended herself with them while the young man tried to attack her. At some point, the girl realized that her hand was almost numb and she could no longer withstand the attack. Tears began to appear from her eyes and the tension was very strong. At some point, she thought did the young man really want to shift her to second place and thought that he would succeed. But she just couldn't accept it, so she thought about how she would further evade his attack. The girl decided that she could not accept losing to the hero and used all her energy, namely the breakthrough of silver of the second rank. Everything around her was in fragments of ice flows. The young man saw that it was a breakthrough. If he retreated somewhere, he was afraid that everything would go to hell. Then he called the judge and said that a timeout was needed because they had a foul game here. The girl was at the peak of her strength, and the young man decided that he should ask the host if the breakthrough during the fight was cheating. Then the presenter, getting angry, thought that again the young man did not act according to plan, arranging a pause. He said that it was unfair, and then calling the hero an idiot and that there was dishonest, in his opinion. So the presenter asked the young man to stop talking and go on fighting. The girl understood that the young man did not attack her because of her breakthrough. She did not expect that he would be so cute. After that, she asked the young man to stop with his tricks and go to her and fight, inspired with full strength. She waited for the young man who was standing not far from the host, and the hero, again stood in a pose, decided that he agreed to her proposal and offered to fight. Then the girl, looking at the young man, told him that now he had to be more careful because now she was much stronger than him. But the young man decided that this was not a hindrance, and leaning on the cane from the mop, he jumped towards the girl and decided to attack her. But the attempt was unsuccessful. Did he really decide that it was all because of the girl's breakthrough, or the speed of her attack power greatly increased? The failed attempt cost the young man the fact that he fell to the ground and was weakened by Zhen Zhen's attack. It's like this again. He was full of strength and determination to win. Then the hero realized that it was the end for him, because the fragments were heading straight towards him, so the young man had to defend himself. At the moment when the girl attacked him with her ice flows, the young man defended himself with his hands. But his hands became so cold that it felt like he was going to lose consciousness now. If this continued, he thought that he would definitely lose. So he had to fight, and despite the cold that enveloped him, the guy decided not to give up and decided to attack Zhen Zhen directly in the frontal. The girl did not expect him to do this. She underestimated him, thinking about what kind of surge of energy she had just seen. The hero again used a trick, saying that it was impossible to let her attack him again, and made a capture of the girl, grabbing her with her own hands. Then she did not understand what he was doing and asked him to remove his hands. But the young man replied that he would not do it for anything and used his dirty tricks, which is clearly not expected from ginseng from a guy. But the girl tried to break free, asking the guy to let her go, and the young man understood that her strength was too great. If they did not continue in the same spirit, the young man would lose. Then suddenly the boys and the girl fell into the arena, and she did not understand what was happening. Then the hero tried to support her so that the girl would not hurt herself, but she saw that the guy was bleeding and therefore asked to immediately remove his hands, looking at his cut on his shoulder. The young man believed that she was very nice, that she tried to protect him further, but made a reservation that she would not let her go until she admits defeat. The girl told him in response not to force her because she would let go if he doesn't admit defeat. Suddenly the young man warned her, asking her not to force him because he has an ace up his sleeve, and this is a rabbit bite. If she does not admit defeat, then he will really bite her then. Horrified, the girl thought about a rabbit bite because they were on the exam, and the young man still decided to bite. Then the guy said that it didn't matter if he passed the exam or not. He just wanted to beat her, and this excited the girl and surprised her at the same time. She didn't think that the young man just wanted to win, and at that moment, embarrassed, she exhaled and told the presenter that she was giving up, raising her hand. The presenter, looking at the whole situation, was amazed, and the young man relaxed and immediately lost consciousness, which surprised Zhen Zhen very much, and after looking at Lin Qiu, she began to call the young man because he just fell to the ground. She could not understand what was wrong with him. She was not very excited and upset, continuing to call our hero. Opening his eyes, the young man felt that someone was calling him. Then he saw Zhen Zhen, who said that she had overdone it, because really it was necessary to treat herself like that. The girl was worried about the guy. Then he, seeing his hands, began to worry about what was happening to him. Zhen Zhen screamed for the rabbit not to come. She screamed it with tears in her eyes. Then the hero realized that something had happened to him. He was a giant rabbit. It was rabbits, not a man, and wondered what had happened to him. After which he jumped out of bed. He started screaming and woke up. Looking at his hands, the young man saw that he was an ordinary person. The guy's head was rewound. He was lying on a hospital bed. At that moment, the system appeared in front of him, asking if the host had woken up. Then the young man realized that it was just a dream and began to watch the computer. The system congratulated the host on getting an SSS rank skill upgrade. The optimal skill was chosen to improve the ferment. The white rabbit was successfully transformed into a tramp rabbit. The tramp rabbit activated skill does not associate with rabbits, especially with tramps. After seeing this, the young man thought that it was all some terrible mistake and was madly angry at the system for what it came up with, because he had just seen a terrible dream that still haunted him. The system also reported that just yesterday the young man was in a coma and could not choose a skill on his own, so the system chose for him. After cooling down, the young man thought that maybe everything wasn't so bad, because all the garbage of the rank had been falling out lately anyway, and so he pressed the accept skill button. Think about the fact that since he woke up, he decided to spin it again so that he didn't have to get something bad. The system congratulated the host on receiving the C rank skill of awakening the space system. Then seeing the SSS rank skill again, the young man thought that he was really lucky today. Then the system discovered that the host already has some skills and the process of merging the skills of drilling plus space begins. When the young man saw how the system was doing the merging of skills, he did not understand what kind of merger it was and began to pull his hands towards her, plaintively asking what she was doing and asking her to explain what it all meant. And what it was. What was the merger and what the system was trying to do with this merger. He was insanely upset because it could mean something bad. The young man was afraid that there would be something not good with his skills. Here the system said that the merger was successful and congratulated the host on the successful evolution and transformation into a B-level beast at this moment. She was transferring skills to him and the beam was directed directly at the guy in his stomach. The hero looked in surprise at what was happening. Beasts of Level B. Introduction to the skill. The Cosmic Rabbit Vagrant Synthesis System has endowed the host with a number of advantages of cosmic power that will help the host make dreams come true. Looking at his computer, the young man turning to 9527 thought that what was the use of this thing. The computer reported that it was just a storage space, a special place in the space system. Now it was empty, but you can put anything there. A pocket appeared on the young man's body, into which the young man could put anything. Touching himself, the young man realized that it was something like a storage room and showed the system a thumbs up sign, which meant that he liked it. The system also explained that in addition to space, the host had a new skill, Any Door. Any Door was a skill where the host opens a door that allows the host to teleport to any point at a distance of 5 meters. The system reported and showed exactly how it works. Getting out of bed, the young man realized that he could teleport to any point within a radius of 5 meters and decided to try. A door was open in front of him, which the young man decided to enter. Here the system asked the host to open the doors. Imagine the destinations at a distance of 5 meters, which he could reach, and then thinking about where the young man wanted to go, he decided that he wanted to try to recover to the floor below, just to try this skill. Then the hero entered the door that was in front of him and disappeared, after which he appeared in a completely new place, falling to the floor, scratching his head from how he hurt himself, already sick, with his head that was rewound. The young man found himself in another room, and behind him sat a girl who was hiding under her blanket, and was insanely surprised that the young man was in her room. Taking a knife, she asked Lin Qiu how the young man was here. It turned out to be Lin Qiu, 20 years old, the daughter of the landlord. The young man was surprised that the family of the landlord lives there from below, and when he saw Sister Zhu, he asked her to calm down and let him explain everything, showing with her hands that everything was completely different from what she thought. But the girl was adamant, asking the young man what was there to explain, deciding that she would kill him for what he got into her room. The young man said that it was just a misunderstanding and asked him not to beat him, because he was a sick person. Crying explained to the young man to the girl. Day 2, Cafe. Rubbing his cheeks, the young man thought that it hurt, but it was lucky that the girl let him out alive at all. Otherwise he would not have been able to go on a date with his goddess, because today she suddenly sent him a message. Entering the door of the coffee shop where they were supposed to be, the young man saw that Zhen was calling him, pointing with her hand to him so that the young man would come here. There were several other people sitting next to her, and seeing that there would be other people here, the young man was very saddened by this. The girl noticed that he felt even worse after the rest, because he looked quite upset and told Lin Qiu about it. The guy, rubbing the back of his head, said that something had happened. That's why he was so unhappy, while trying not to look into the girl's eyes, because he didn't want her to know what had happened to him earlier. After all, he looked very upset and depressed. Zhen wondered if everything was alright, because they were leaving soon, and the young man had to take good care of himself. The girl said that she invited everyone here so that the researchers could get to know each other, pointing in advance to the guys sitting to her right, asking if the guys were already familiar or not. Looking at the guys, the young man thought that he was already overjoyed and tears were flowing down his cheeks by themselves. An 8-star conqueror of sound and a 9-star healer looked at him, asking if his brother was okay and if he needed something to treat him. The girl said that the little rabbit looked very pathetic. Zhen Zhen reported that Zhang Cheng was the real storm of their team and pointed at the young man sitting right in front of her. After greeting his brother Laziness, the young man says that he saw his fights and he was very cool. Zhang Cheng was a bronze 9-star fire lord and looked very courageous and intimidating. The girl said that there were 2 more, but now they are busy with admission, so they could not attend today's gathering. Sitting next to Lin Qiu, she asked, the hero must have also received a bunch of offers from universities, and the guy said that they sent him a couple this morning. Looking at Zhen Zhen, the young man recalled this morning how the courier gave him letters. The famous university, which he had never dared to dream of before, is now fighting for it with other universities. This greatly pleased the young man, because before he really could not imagine such a thing. Zhen Zhen reported that in this case, Lin Qiu, our hero, which university he was going to choose, and looking at him with a shy look, she waited for an answer from our hero. The young man did not understand why she suddenly asked if she really wanted to go to the same university with him, and seeing her reaction, the young man was embarrassed, looking directly at the girl, not knowing what she needed to answer.